Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl, here in the studios with the one, the only, Mr. Tyler Keefe. How are you? We made it. It is Wednesday,
It is
right?
Wednesday. It is correct. That is correct, Ronnie. Yes. You are 3 for 3 this week.
I know. We need a big calendar that says
We do.
today is Wednesday.
We do.
And the
It's got to be in like bold, flashy letters right above us, like a neon sign, turn the studio into Las Vegas.
That would work.
It would. It would.
That would allow me to actually know what day of the week it is.
Same here.
It's just crazy. It
is. It's wild.
I feel like I just woke up and it was Monday.
So do I.
And then
Very much.
boom, it's Wednesday. I've been busy, Tyler, trying to put out my Halloween decorations and all that good stuff. Trying to decorate for the holiday. Do you do
get
any
yourself
of
ready.
that?
I haven't recently done a lot of decorating for Halloween. I'm not sure if I will. I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll have to get a little closer and see how I'm feeling. Get into the spirit of the times. See what happens.
So, do you dress your cats up?
I have not. No, I've not. I didn't have them with me last Halloween. I didn't get them till just after Christmas of last year. So I have not dressed them up. They're pretty spooky as they are. They run around. They chase things that aren't there. They're a little crazy.
I think you should make a TikTok video of
I
them,
probably
you
should.
dressing them up in costumes, because I could imagine cats hate that.
I'll
even
dress
more
them up
so
as
than
me, and I'll
dogs.
dress up as them. That'll work.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We know it's Wednesday. It's hump day. We're trying to get through the day. Actually stopped by Starbucks today for the first time in probably a couple weeks. I have a gold card. So I used to be addicted to Starbucks, like almost every morning. But now it's out of my way when I come here, so I have to go past the studio to go to Starbucks and get here. And I was like, no, I deserve a Starbucks today. But I will say, I don't know what it is about Starbucks water. Their water is so good. Just their water.
Interesting.
And I'm not the only one who thinks that. You know, my niece was like, yeah, it is really good. So
Well, it's never been touched by human hands. That's the thing.
no, I think they put it through like triple filters
Probably.
or something
They
like
probably
that.
do some
So-
special filtering. Who knows?
So I'm treating myself today to
That's good. Good for you.
Starbucks, because the only time I really go is occasionally I take my dog to get a puppuccino. She likes the puppuccinos, but we can't tell her pet dad, because he doesn't like when I do that. But
What better way to not tell her pet dad than on a daily radio show, right?
that's okay. He's on his way to
That's
the
true.
Lions, so
That's true.
he's
He's got better things to be mad about.
He's got other things to
the
actually
Lions.
do. Like, oh my gosh,
Oh.
can you imagine going to the Lions each and every week?
No. That does not sound fun at all.
And he has to do these game shows with them.
Yeah. I've
And
seen it.
when
It's great.
they lose and you have to go in and try to do these game shows, it's just not fun. But at least now it's kind of, he has to do them via Zoom. So he's not going into the locker room, hey, I want to do a game show. It has to be coordinated through the Lions PR team. So I guess that makes it a little bit easier and less awkward.
Yeah.
With
I would
these
think.
game shows. I'm like, he should do a game show about how many losses about the Lions.
Do a game show. Name your 5 favorite people that wear pencils in their ears. Nobody lists Matt Patricia.
Oh my gosh.
Name your 5 favorite car brands. Nobody says Ford.
Oh, that'd be awkward. That's when editing would come in.
Everybody's taking L's.
Anyway, always a pleasure to have everyone tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. And Tyler, so I have so many people say, what is the Oakland County Megacast? Is that like a podcast? Is that this or that? I'm like, no, we're
little bit of
really
everything.
And when you think about it, because of our reach on social media, and you have the radio, you have public access TV, and you have social media, we have such a broader reach than so many other people really think about, because they're just tuning into mainstream media. But I will say that I have noticed that we will have a guest on, and a day or two later, mainstream media is picking up snippets of some of the conversations that we have, and then they are reaching out to the individual and doing the story. So we know we do have an influence here, at the Oakland County Megacast. I think one of those things has to do with the great thing about the show is we've talked about it before, is that we are able to have longer form interviews with our guest. And so that allows them to go into deeper details about what's going on, and you're not put into a 10, 15, 20-second soundbite.
Yeah, and you know it from your long career in journalism in the local area and throughout the country, that it's tough to tell somebody's story in just a couple of minutes. And when you give them all that time that we do each and every day to talk about what they're doing, to tell us about how those things came about, how they are inspired by the times that we're in to be doing what they're doing, that becomes even more interesting. And that's where you get this broader reach, where these people's stories are able to reach even further than beyond the depths of what we can help them reach here at the Oakland County Megacast.
Yeah, I know sometimes people are like, oh, you're fluff news because you're public access. But I will say the one thing about us is when we have people on and we need to ask the questions, we're going to ask the questions.
Yeah.
We're respectful in the way that we ask the questions, but we're trying to ask the questions that you need to know or information that has the gaps. But we also like to highlight all the great things going on in our community right now, because I will say I think everyone needs a break about right now.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to get the positive news, and this is a place that you can find that at least on a daily basis. We're not going to shy away from other things that are going on that are important, but no, if this is what you're looking for in quality local news that affects your direct hometown and isn't entirely doom and gloom, then that's what you're going to find here every day, 10 a.m. to 12.
10 a.m. to noon. And we also start off the day by updating all of our local news headlines. So we do that for you, so you don't have to go through 20 different papers. We do it on our own. So if you go over to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and that's where you will find the latest news headlines. A lot happening now with the Michigan State Supreme Court ruling, one of those being that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services now issuing a lot of new orders. And yesterday they had two big ones that came out. One is to requiring schools, they have to disclose COVID-19 cases within 24 hours. So that's even stricter than what the governor had. K through 12 schools are going to be required to provide public notice if they have a probable or a confirmed case of COVID-19 among students, faculty, or staff. Order is effective Monday and lasts through October 30th. According to the department order, the notice to the school community must go out within 24 hours after the local health department informs the school of the case. The local health department, however, must also notify close contacts of the associated case. We've talked to numerous superintendents here on the Megacast about this issue, and it's just one more thing on their plate. So many of the superintendents are saying, we know we're going to have COVID positive cases. You can't avoid that. And they're hoping that this is in the interest of the community as a broader approach, and not something as more of a finger pointing issue, because one thing with COVID-19 that we have learned is that people can get it anywhere. You can get it if you go to the grocery store. You can get it if you, go anywhere outside your home, unless you're living in a bubble. So it makes it hard for them.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, and you got to be even more cautious now than you maybe were before, because some of these orders are going to be relaxed, but there are going to be orders that come from the Department of Health and Human Services that do come from the local county as well that are going to adjust for that. But there's going to be some tough transitions here in the next few weeks to a month or so as the state adjusts to what this normal is going to be under orders that aren't coming directly from the governor, when that's been what we've been operating on since March.
The other big issue coming out of the health department yesterday, their emergency orders to maintain existing COVID-19 precautions in nursing homes and other long-term care facilities in the wake of that recent Supreme Court decision. One of the orders issued by MDHHS Director Robert Gordon continues visitation restrictions for residential care facilities like nursing homes, adult foster care, and assisted living facilities. The residential care order also stipulates notice requirements for employees, residents, legal guardians, health proxies for residents when an employee or a resident test positive and requires the facility to post public notices and notify the local health department when a case occurs. Here's the other big change coming out of this. They are also going to have to keep records of their personal protection equipment supplies and report that information to the state as well. We have heard from a lot of the workers that have been doing some of these protests saying that they didn't have enough PPE. So this is going to be one way that the state is going to try to monitor that.
Yeah, and this is another one of those trade-offs for the governor not being able to make her executive orders and have a centralized state response, is that there's going to be more severe regulations that are put in place by the state bureaucracies like the Department of Health and Human Services, so that they can keep an eye on this and operate their part of the government on their terms, instead of having a statewide response, at least until there is maybe a response that is determined by the state legislature and those other leaders in Lansing.
I found this next story a little bit surprising. I'd like to see what you think about this as well. There was a study done that said more than a third of Michigan voters say they are not going to be vaccinated against the coronavirus, even if the measure is federally approved and recommended by their doctor. That's according to a poll by the Detroit News and WDIV Channel 4. When asked if they would take a vaccine approved by the Food and Drug Administration, 39% said they would not, 44% indicated that they would, and the remainder were unsure. The substantial numbers who said they would not get vaccinated signals an uphill climb for the state to convince residents that an approved vaccine is both reliable and important for public and personal health. I was having a discussion with my husband this morning. I said, how much longer do we have to live like this? Coronavirus is not going to just go away. You got to remember SARS is still out there.
Right.
SARS just didn't impact the United States like it did some of these other countries. So are we going to live under these restrictions forever, or will these vaccines be mandated? Which will be interesting. Like schools, you have to be vaccinated to go to school. Right. So now will this be one of the vaccinations you have to get?
That wouldn't surprise me. And to go back to the numbers, though, Ronnie, I would say at this point in time, why the numbers may be so severe, at least from my thinking, is that there has been a little bit of a different story from one side of the aisle versus the other of when we're going to get a vaccine. We've had the president mention that we could have one as early as November. We've had other experts and scientists who have said that could be as far as 11 months to a year even from now before we see a tried and true vaccine and have that be distributed widespread. So maybe there's some lack of confidence if there is a vaccine in the next couple of months in whether or not the efficacy of that vaccine is going to be tried and true. And then on top of that, there's always going to be a certain number of the population that A, doesn't want to get vaccine because they don't believe it's as severe as it's made out to be, or B, because they simply don't believe in vaccines altogether. So that to me is what points to why these numbers are so high right now. I would imagine that they come down, but there's still always going to be a certain sector of the population that is not going to get vaccinated at all or for certain diseases.
And that is, I will say, I haven't had a flu vaccine and I don't know how long. And I know I've worked at places where it's so pushed on you, and I never have. The one time I had it, I felt sick. And I know that we've talked to Dr. Tawil at length about this, and really this time of the year right now, more than ever, people should be getting a vaccine for the flu, because one thing you don't want to do is get the flu and COVID at the same time. So, but you'll find those headlines and more over on civiccentertv.com. Just click on that coronavirus tab there. Also, we try to make it easy for you to navigate this crisis. We put links to all the resources that you need to kind of follow along, including the CDC, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, as well as our local municipalities as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. When we come back, we have a lot of exciting guests for you. Coming up on today's show, we'll be speaking with the president and CEO of the Ford House. We'll check in with a psychologist. How are you doing in the middle of this COVID crisis? Brian Calley, he is the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan. I'm excited to talk to him, considering all the confusion that is going on right now, Tyler, as well. And then we'll round out the show with the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission. But for now, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Thank you for tuning into the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl in the studios with Tyler Keith. You can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T if you do subscribe to cable. And we want to say thank you if you do, because you help support programming such as this. You can also catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And then also, of course, today you can catch us on Civic Center TV, either on our website or on our social media page as well. We are streaming today's programming live. So you can pretty much catch us everywhere, Tyler.
Yeah. Any outlet you choose, you can get our programming all day, every day.
Our first guest on today's show, Mark Heppner. He is the president and CEO of Ford House. Mark, I'm ashamed to say I have lived in Metro Detroit for way too many years, but for some reason, the Ford House, I've never been there. And I used to work for Fox 2 and did that Sunday morning show where we went anywhere and everywhere. So I'm surprised I was never on at the Ford House.
You know, it's funny you say that. If I had a penny for every time I've heard that. And you know what, I've been in this field for working with historic estates across the country for 20 plus years, and it seems to be that happens often, is those great jewels in our own backyard we often don't get to, and yet they're the ones that we should be most proud of.
So for those not familiar with the Ford House, fill us in.
Absolutely. It's actually the former estate of Edsel and Eleanor Ford. And for those who might not know, Edsel was the only child of Henry and Clara Ford. So they, again, they're this iconic American family here in our own state of Michigan and kind of our own local royalty, if you will. And so all the Ford family that we may know of today really stem from Edsel and Eleanor. So this was really their home. This was where they came in as a family. This is where they grew up. This is where they had memories. And when Eleanor, first of all, Edsel passed away at an early age in 1943 at the age of about 49, 50. And then Eleanor resided here until 1976 when she passed away. But she had the foresight, and I'll be honest with you, I've always been admired by her story, because she saw what was going around in, across America, but also here in Michigan, with these wonderful architectural wonders that were built, these homes that were being razed and torn down in the 70s in particular. And she saw it happening here in her own neck of the woods, and decided in her will to leave this wonderful estate for the betterment of the community. And that's how it became a private operating foundation. The Ford family are still the board of trustees, and they are the ones that I work for, and that we maintain the estate for the enjoyment of the public through our mission, through educational programs, experiences, and it's just a fabulous amenity here in the community.
So for those such as myself and other members of the community that have never been there before, what is there for them to see and to experience?
Well, if you had asked me this just about a year ago, I might tell you a slightly different story. We've always been open for folks to come out to tour the estate, both indoor and outdoor. It's a wonderful setting in a sanctuary for natural beauty, with the gardens and grounds, and the landscape was designed by a renowned landscape architect by the name of Jens Jensen. And then the main house itself and all the support buildings were designed by Albert Kahn, which I'm sure you've heard of. And so architecturally, it's just inspiring. The grounds and the real estate are amazing. And then in the house, the collections that the family owned and collected, artwork, etc. That's all open for the public to come and experience, both by self-guided experiences, and then pre-COVID and post-COVID eventually, also by guided experiences. Right now, the buildings are closed because of COVID, but we invite all our friends and community members come in and actually tour the outdoors. And it's just such a great breakaway in a safe environment to get and see beauty. But the reason I said that, I might have told you something slightly different. We're also in the final stages of an amazing construction project. We will be finishing up early spring next year and introducing to our community a wonderful 40,000 square foot visitor center, as well as a new administration building, 17,000 foot administration building. And the reasons for those is that we will be moving all our staff out of the historic buildings into this new building, the administration building, so we can begin to restore even more of the house in the buildings for the public's enjoyment. And with this visitor center, we're going to be offering our community something that just does not exist. And it's going to be state-of-the-art exhibitions to tell the story of Edsel Eleanor, the Ford family, and the estate, which will be wonderful. Traveling exhibitions. We have a first exhibit telling the story of Edsel Ford and who he was and his impact in the design world and the automotive world, which is just a great story in itself. We certainly don't have time to tell that whole story today. But also it will be a first-class destination restaurant that we're going to be opening up in the spring of next year. Retail, meeting space, rental space, corporate space to have meetings. And it's just all these amenities that we're giving to the community and we're so excited about. And that's coming next year.
Mark Heppner with us, the president and CEO of the Ford House, with us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Mark, you mentioned that the house is not currently open for tours. You can tour the outside. Many historical sites and museums throughout the local area have been providing virtual experiences over the course of the pandemic. Are there any of those in place with the Ford House as of now, or any plans for those potentially in the near or distant future?
Fantastic question. And there's a lot of museums, especially children museums, that were really queued up quite well to do virtual programming because they've been doing it. Places like us, however, kind of were behind the 8 ball, and this is something that has forced us to pivot very quickly. And I got to say, I've been extremely amazed and proud of our team here and our education staff, how they've been able to take a lot of our programming and actually add a lot of programming to a virtual platform. And so anybody goes to fordhouse.org, you'll see just this plethora of programming that has scheduled out for the rest of the year. The other thing that we had to pivot on is that we also, throughout the calendar year, have some very, very large events. We have a great partnership with the DSO, which we bring in over 2 nights, each night around 3,000 to 4,000 people. That obviously we could not do. We have a wonderful program with Eyes in Design, which is a car show, which is an amazing event, which brings in thousands of people. We could not do that on Father's Day. But we pivoted with those partnerships, and we've had smaller, more manageable outdoor programming to fulfill those needs of those partnerships, which we've gotten great response because people feel safe they're still getting that interest and getting that fulfillment and inspiration from these experiences. But yeah, they're a lot smaller, but people, again, they just feel comfortable.
So, Mark, I have to ask you, are you at the Ford House now, or are you at home?
I am today. Actually, I am today. I'm in my office.
I was going to say, if you're at home and you have like 20 little bottles of hand sanitizer behind you, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Well, it's funny you say that. I will say one thing about Ford House. When this all came evident with COVID-19, one of the things we said, and it's interesting because I remember even talking to my wife, there's a lot of things in my life that I can't control. My family, a lot of things. But one thing I said I can control is here at Ford House. And we were, from day one, very serious about COVID and the safety of not only our staff, but also any visitors and in the general public. So we set up very quickly our protocols and procedures, and we've adhered to that throughout this. And so, in the beginning, there's a lot of people that, well, I don't understand why you're doing this, and this is extremist. But the feedback from our members and our visitors is overwhelming, how they really appreciate how we've taken this very serious. So yeah, you will find, it's interesting. We try to take also advantage of certain things, not in a bad way too, but even our mask, we have our nice little branded face mask, but even our hand sanitizers that we did right away for people. And we want to make sure, again, though, if you come to visit us, that you know that you're very safe and you're thought of and being taken care of. And one other thing I just want to, so I don't forget this one, thinking about programming. The other thing we just launched is that we also realize, I'm a parent. I have a lot of my team are parents, and they're all struggling. We're all struggling about schooling and our children and virtual learning and at home, and try to juggle all this together. And so we just launched a program here for Children Are Free, and we put together actually curriculum-based activities. So if you're a parent that all of a sudden you find yourself having to be a teacher and you're not sure how to do all this, you can actually just come to Ford House and tell us the age of your child, and we'll give you free a activity-based, curriculum-driven programming. So while you're here to visit, you don't have to do the hard work. You come, enjoy, and then we'll do the hard work for you. So we're trying to be thoughtful of our community needs.
I love that you've thought of that. I will say I'm glad I don't have kids, because they'd be learning old school math right now to carry them on, and cursive writing would be mandated.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I will tell you, my daughter asked me last night about some math and statistics, and I said, please talk to your mother.
Yeah, we're lucky. My brother-in-law is a math teacher in our family, so he's filled in that gap quite nicely. For those that haven't been there, because obviously we know about the Henry Ford Museum.
Absolutely.
Why is it important to preserve their house? I mean, was it their vacation home? And I understand the Ford family really is kind of like our Kennedy family here in Metro Detroit. Is how in my mind, I picture them. But what history and the importance will regular people learn from visiting the site?
And I'm really glad you asked it, because I think that's a really important question. As I told you, I've have the privilege of working with these, what we call country house estates. And this was the primary residence of Edsel and Eleanor and their children. But the question is, why are these estates important? Number one, Ford House is actually designated as a National Historic Landmark by the federal government. And that's a small group of historic properties across America that get slated by the federal government. And this specifically was slated because of this creative collaboration of artistic design, from the landscape, from the building and architecture to interior design. So it's all about design and the importance of that in everyday life, but also what that means as an American in our design focus. But even more so, the question, it's a legitimate question, is like, why do we care about these large homes of the wealthy, and what does that have to share with us moving forward? And we've been talking, we just actually finished up a strategic planning process, and we started to talk about how these sites like Ford House have a more important responsibility moving forward, that they really are kind of a monument, if you will, to kind of white privilege, but not but taking that into a step further is that what the Fords did here, Edsel and Eleanor, is that how they used their privilege that they had to support the community. They were very philanthropic in their giving, in their support of local artists, of artwork, of education, in a lot of local communities in nonprofits. So we're taking that legacy that they left us, but taking it for a 21st century relevancy. And I think that's always a challenge. So we're really excited about this new Ford House. And it's not just a stoic historic property behind walls that really has no relevancy. We're looking about how we are going to be a heartbeat of the community and represent the community and make sure that everybody who comes here can see themselves at Ford House and have a connection that is meaningful.
So I believe you all have gardens, beautiful gardens as well. And
Absolutely.
I know that we just had Cranbrook on last week talking about their gardens. A lot of people right now need to get out and explore and experience nature. And we're having such a beautiful fall right now. If people want to come, can they come and just walk the gardens, or do they have to buy a ticket as well?
So great, again, another great question. You got a lot of good questions today. I like that.
That's because I plan on coming, so I'm really asking the questions I want to know.
Well, I really, truly, and sincerely hope you do come, and let me know if you do, because if folks come, all they have to do is go online. We are asking people to reserve spots. And it's very, I forget what the cost is, and I shouldn't have known this right now, but it's very nominal to get access to the landscape. But we're controlling how many people come per hour. And so all you got to do is reserve your time. It's completely contactless, so you get a ticket. You can even have it on your phone or print it out. We'll scan it at the gate as you come through. You don't have to get out of the car. And then you have, all the acres in totality, or 87 acres of the estate, but with formal gardens, open gardens. We actually have a place called Bird Island because we're actually on the migratory bird flight. And so we always in the spring and the fall have a plethora of variety of birds, and we do bird walks and bird talks. And so it's amazing the amount of beauty. And if nothing else, you just come and walk and take in the peacefulness of it, because again, we're guaranteeing that there's not large crowds. So it's always an intimate experience.
That's great to know. Quickly, can you bring your pets, like if you have a dog?
I only laugh because I actually live out in the country in a hobby. And so when you said pets, we actually have rescue horses and goats and dogs and cats. And I'm like, those aren't the
I
pets
won't
we're
bring
gonna
my
allow.
goat or my
Dogs.
chicken.
Dogs. So we right now, it's one of the things that one of the daughters, the daughter of Edsel and Eleanor, Josephine, she was an avid dog lover and always had dogs. So a member benefit that we offer, if you're a member of Ford House, is that you could come and walk your dogs. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but it'll be on the website. We may have opened that up to even the general public just during this time of COVID. But we look at it as a benefit as a member, if you're here, that you can actually come and walk your dog, which is something I know no historic property that I know has allowed that. So it's kind of fun.
It is so fun. Again, for those that may be like myself, just learning about the Ford House, again, I mean, Henry Ford Museum, I think we are all very familiar with that. So I'm so happy that we've had you on the show today to talk about this and enlightened some of our viewers and listeners to let them know that this gem does exist in our own backyard. Again, what is your website for people to get information? And I would imagine that's probably the best way for them to sign up for a time as well.
It is definitely through our website, which is www.fordhouse.org. And also we have a very active Facebook page with all updates of programming and activities too, and great photographs of a lot of things that are going on around at the estate. And as I just said, we are so blessed here in Michigan, Southeast Michigan, with such a host of wonderful cultural and art organizations, and we're thrilled to be part of that. And my goal is to really raise the profile of this organization moving forward. And we have such an opportunity with these new buildings, but also just because we're changing who we are. And that's exciting to me.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We so appreciate it, and best of luck with the renovations and surviving COVID as well. And when I come, I want one of your fancy dancy hand sanitizers.
Absolutely, I can guarantee you that. And I just want to thank you both for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and anytime and anything we can do, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thank you so much. Mark Heppner with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the president and CEO of the Ford House. Great to have him with us. I love his enthusiasm and his knowledge of these beautiful landmarks that are still with us here in our backyard there. Tyler, I will say, I think we need Civic Center TV or Megacast TV hand sanitizer.
We don't have the kind of money for that. We don't have the budget for that.
We are public access. I will say, though, I have a gallon of that hand sanitizer that I got from the alcohol store. I don't know if it was 2 James or one of the ones in Detroit, but it's like pure alcohol.
Yeah.
And and it burns your hands.
That's how you know it works.
When it first started, that's where we were getting our hand sanitizer.
Right.
You couldn't get any hand sanitizer. But I'm willing to donate that. Probably not a good thing, though, right? We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we'll get a little bit more serious and talk about our mental health during this COVID crisis. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
We're here in the Civic Center TV 89.3 Lakes FM studio in the greater West Bloomfield area. Tyler and I are here in the studios 10 a.m. to noon, Monday through Friday, bringing you interviews with newsmakers and interesting people and educational people as we continue to navigate the COVID crisis 6 months into the pandemic. Our next guest is Dr. Melanie Schwartz. She is a psychologist and wellness expert. Great to have you on the show with us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Stress levels, I would imagine, have been kind of like a roller coaster during the coronavirus crisis, because at first we think, all the news that's coming at us, it can be overwhelming, but then you think you have a handle on it, and then something new comes out, and then something new, and you think it's coming to an end, but it's not coming to an end. What are you telling people on the best way to try to deal with the emotional roller coaster of the coronavirus?
Well, there's a couple things that I'm recommending. I mean, we're all feeling it. Number one is limit exposure to all of this, because just getting information and more information and contradictory information, it's just leading us on this roller coaster that we don't need to be on. And so limiting that exposure, not watching TV 24/7, not being on your computer 24/7, not reading anything 24/7, listening to anything 24/7, limiting your exposure to how much you can handle. And that might be different for everybody, but trying to figure out for yourself, what is a manageable amount? Additionally, since we're hearing a lot of negative information, we're not hearing a ton of positive things because we're all looking for an end in sight and we don't seem to have one. Balancing out the negative with some positive. So making sure that you are engaging in self-care, that you're doing things that are enjoyable with family or friends if you're seeing friends. So making sure there's that balance so your life is just not filled with a bunch of negative things. You can enjoy some things in your life as well.
I will say for me, my happy place is to go to Pinterest and watch all the animal videos.
Yep, that'll do it. That will do it.
You know, it's something small and it's something simple, but when you're feeling overwhelmed, you see all these cute animals like a baby giraffe or a baby piglet.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, oh
animals,
God, they're so cute.
Animals, yeah, they just make you happy. Absolutely.
So, and as we continue on, now we're going into this election season. And so on top of COVID, I feel like we're being bombarded with the ads on TV, the political ads that are the negative ads, and then just the craziness with the presidential election. And for the people who are living in households where they're divided on these political issues, I feel like communication is now being shut down. How do you suggest people kind of move past that? Is there a way to just be quiet, or, you know, can these conversations start fights? And is that detrimental to our well-being?
Well, yes, we're definitely seeing that people are very polar opposites this year, and more so as time goes on. And people are very defensive in their opinions and the way that they feel about the political climate. So one thing I recommend, number one, if it's too difficult to talk about with somebody within your household, don't do it. If it's going to create a fight, just don't do it. You know what the other person is thinking, and it's okay to have a different opinion. You're not going to sway anyone to have the same opinion as you, but I think a lot of people are trying to do that, and so that's why arguments are erupting, because they're trying to get somebody else to see their side of things. If you can do it in a way where both parties are, or multiple people are listening to each other and hearing what the other person has to say, that's fine. Have a conversation about it. But if every conversation turns into an argument, then don't have the conversation. It's not worth it right now. What you have to remember is that your relationship was there, whether it's a significant other, whether it's family, child, parent, siblings, whatever it was, your relationship was there prior to all of this, and it will be there after all of this. So the relationship is way more important than your disagreement over this topic.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She is a psychologist and wellness expert. Always great to have you here on the Oakland County Megacast. For the parents that are out there trying to homeschool their kids and trying to work remotely, if they're even lucky enough to be able to work remotely, their stress level has to be at a height that they've never seen before. Any recommendations for them?
Well, I am one of those parents as well. My kids are in the other room right now doing their schoolwork.
I hope you're not teaching fifth grade math.
No. I'm first and fourth grader, so no. Close, but not quite. It is very complicated because the boundaries aren't there that we would normally have. And the kids are struggling because they're either bored, they're not, stimulated by what's going on. There's too much disruption going on Zoom. And so the parents have to be more present. Obviously, well, if their kids were in school, they wouldn't have to be present at all. So one thing I recommend is that you have to set up a schedule for your day. Okay. Even though the kids have a schedule, they know what times they have to be on their Zoom or Google Meet calls or whatever platform the schools are using. And so you have to, unfortunately, structure your day around the kids' day, but in a way where you have time to get your work done and help them at the same time. If you have another parent in the household, that's great. That can be helpful. You guys can work together to make that happen. If you don't, it's obviously a bit more complicated and your day is going to be a lot longer. But if you have that structure, that will help to kind of bring down the chaos of the kids needing help or needing to watch them. It's just about the structure right now. I know a lot of families are doing the pods where the kids go to somebody's house one day a week or twice a week, and then one day it could be at your house. And I know that that's helping a lot of the families so that they can get their work done on the days that the kids are not with them. Some people obviously have childcare with them to also assist in that. But if you don't, it is manageable. We are all making it happen. It is very stressful. And when you do have time for yourself, please take it. Okay. Don't try and get housework done. The housework can wait. It's not a big deal. Okay. Make sure that you are getting your time so that you can do all of this, because it's very stressful. And it looks like there's an end in sight for some of us. It looks like a lot of the elementary schools are going to go back very soon. But at the same time, just make sure that self-care is happening, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, make sure it happens so that you can kind of balance out everything else.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz with us from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. Schwartz, with the recent developments in the state's COVID-19 response, with Governor Whitmer's executive orders being struck down by the Michigan Supreme Court, there's a lot of changes incoming, and a lot of them very quickly, some of them even immediate this week, as local health departments and other organizations are trying to adjust to what are the rules right now, as are those of us in the general population. That can be a really stressful situation too, because much like March, there's a lot of sudden changes that are happening. What do you suggest for people to be able to roll with those changes and avoid getting overstressed by what's going to continue to come in the next week, 2 weeks, month, as these adjustments are made, with the governor's orders no longer being entirely in place?
Well, I think there is a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anger that seems to be coming out because people, again, have a lot of different views on this topic. I think it's important, stick with what you know right now, okay? Because as things are changing, and they're changing so quickly, you may not have the most up-to-date information. So stick with what you know. Wear a mask, wear it out in public, because that's what we have been told. Now, if things change, okay, you will hear about it. Somebody will tell you. I'm sure people will talk about it. But stick with what you know. Do what you're comfortable with, and then you'll get the information as needed over time. But things are changing so rapidly, it's not even healthy to listen to all of it or read all of it, as we talked about before, because it's just, there's so much and it's constantly changing, and it's hard to keep up with. Okay, so again, limit your exposure, do what you know, which is basically, if you're going out, wear your mask, and then that should limit some of the anxiety that comes with that.
The one thing that is constant is change. We've heard that saying our entire lives, and I think if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that we need to learn to go with the flow and to be able to adapt to the changes. And knowing that for the people that do like routines and they're kind of stuck in their way of doing things, what advice do you have on them to be able to shift their mindset so that they're not so stressed out? Should they start, get out of your comfort zone, play a video game, do a crossword puzzle, something? I mean, what would you recommend for people like that?
Well, there is definitely a lot of that going on. One thing that people need to remember or start to tell themselves is that we have all been very flexible through this. We have had so many changes occur since March, and we have all survived it, and we have gotten through it, and we have made adjustments as time went on. In fact, in March, very, very, very quickly. And while it created anxiety, it created depression, or it created stress, we still did it, which proves to us that we can. So reminding yourself that you will get through this change. May be difficult, but you will. But at the same time, yes, it's about self-care once again, making sure that you're doing things that you enjoy. But also, if you are very stuck in your thinking, you're going to have to challenge yourself a little bit. Okay. The only way to get over that stuckness is to challenge yourself and kind of push forward just a little bit. It doesn't have to be major steps forward. It could be baby steps, just doing something a little bit out of your comfort zone. It could just be, you haven't stepped foot in a grocery store yet. Okay, well, maybe it's time to go do that. And, if you're uncomfortable, that's okay. And maybe you wait a while before you do it again, but at least you tried it. So I think it's just baby steps, self-care, self-talk in terms of how you tell yourself that you can do this, you can be flexible, even if you don't like it, and you will get through it.
Yeah, I think we forget way back in March, this is going to be 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and here we are 6 months later, but we forget where we started, and we have come a long way. I'm curious to know, are you seeing stress levels higher with women versus men? Because I wonder too, from a female standpoint, and this is nothing against the men, but women, I feel like so many times we put so much more pressure on ourselves. Like we have to be that superwoman where you're on Pinterest and you're making cupcakes and the healthy dinner and doing A, B, C, D, and E, but also juggling your job. Are the stress loads that you're experiencing from your clients higher with women or with men? Or is there a difference at all?
That's a good question. I think it's all around. I don't think it's one more than the other. Yes, the women are feeling the pressure to get everything done, but I feel like the men are stepping up more as well. And so that might be increasing their anxiety in a way that they haven't had to in the past because they're at home, whereas before they would have been at the office or at their jobs, wherever they work. It's all around. And sometimes, the men might be a little bit more focused on the political climate that's going on, whereas the women are very focused on the homeschooling and getting things done in the house like what they would normally do in terms of with the kids and making sure everyone's on their schedule and doing their things. But the men are definitely stepping up a lot more. And so that is creating anxiety. But at the same time, I don't know that there's more anxiety in one way or another. It's definitely across the board.
I just watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma. I think it was on Netflix.
Yeah.
It really is fascinating how we have become addicted to our social media sites. Is that anxiety playing into the COVID-19 crisis in any way as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can't get away from it. People, to some degree, use social media to escape and just Facebook, for example, a lot of people will look at it to see positive things that are going on. And it's throughout your feed these days. You cannot get away from the negativity of it. So yes, it absolutely is impacting everybody's anxiety. And so limiting social media is, again, one of the things that needs to happen. But as it was previously a coping strategy for people, now it's kind of one of those things that is impacting everybody's anxiety. So it's no longer a coping strategy, and it's something that people need to limit.
Yeah, for me, Facebook used to be fun, but now I'm like, oh my gosh.
No,
it's so stressful. I'm like, and I think I'm like, I keep telling myself, take it off your phone, but yet I don't make that move.
Right. And it's hard to do. And here's the other thing too, and I was talking to a parent about this the other day, is that, our phones have become our everything to some degree, because you can read on your phone, you can listen to music on your phone, you can watch TV on your phone, you can, engage in online things on your phone. It's become everything. So it's harder to disengage from it because it's with you all the time. And that's kind of become our form of entertainment more so than ever because we're stuck in the house. So it is harder to disengage from it, but it is really important to limit the exposure to the social media just for your own self-care.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz with us. She is with Viewpoint Psychologist and Wellness. And just a couple more minutes with you before we let you go. And speaking about social media, how can we break that habit? Because I do feel it's just that it's become a habit.
It's really about the only way to do it is what you just said, take it off your phone. That is really the way to do it, because it's right there and you're going to look at it and it just sucks you in very quickly. So if it's not there, it's easier to not go for it and go for some other app or something else that would be healthier for you to look at, or play a video game or look on Pinterest. Whatever it is going to be much healthier for you. So, but it really does, you have to remove it from your phone or from your computer or wherever it is that you're utilizing it. That's how you break the cycle.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz with us from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. Just another couple minutes with you before we have to let you go today, Dr. Schwartz. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed today that you'd like to speak about, or any other information or tips or tricks that you would like to provide to our listening audience going forward as of now?
One of the things I'm noticing at Viewpoint in our practice is that the shift has kind of gone from where the pandemic started. There was a lot of anxiety and there was a lot of depression and feeling overwhelmed and not knowing. And as time is going on, I'm seeing the shift go to anger. Okay. And I think that's important to be aware of and to kind of check in with yourself and see if that is what's happening. Because we're starting to feel very helpless, very hopeless. And so that anger is kicking in. Anger really comes from anxiety, but we're feeling it as anger instead of as anxiety. And so just kind of checking in with yourself, being mindful of that. Are you feeling angry? And if so, what do you need to do to manage that and either express it differently, whether you need to talk about it with somebody, with a therapist or with a friend or a family member, whether you need to get your coping skills and learn how to kind of bring down that anger for yourself, whatever it might be, but just be mindful of it, because people really are feeling more anger than they ever have. And that's not healthy for any of us.
I think one of the positive things to come out of this crisis, the discussion around mental health. Before there was a stigma that was attached to it, but now we are talking about it so much more. So hopefully conversations such as this and all the other attention is going to allow people to feel comfortable to reach out and to get help. And that is so important in this time as well.
Absolutely. We are seeing phone calls higher than we've ever seen. And so it's great that people are reaching out to manage their mental health and do what they need to do. And that, again, helps with the stigma of it. And people are realizing that they do need help during this time, because you can't do it by yourself. So call a mental health facility, practice, whatever you need if you recognize that you're struggling and you can't do it on your own. There are enough therapists, psychiatrists, clinicians in this Metro Detroit area to help everybody. It's just a matter of you guys reaching out to find us.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you and all your insight and your education as well. And good luck with homeschooling yourself.
Thank you.
It will be over one day, we hope. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and a lot to still get to in the second hour of the Megacast. Coming up at 11 o'clock, we'll be speaking with Brian Calley. He is the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
For checking out the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dull alongside Tyler Keefe here in the studios of CivicCenterTV.com and 89.3 Lakes FM here in the greater West Bloomfield area. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. You can catch us today on CivicCenterTV.com on our Facebook page. We're streaming there live as well. Or if you're in the Birmingham area municipal access, you can watch us there. If you have cable, thank you so much. Tune into Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T, and 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. A lot of interesting topics in the first hour of the Oakland County Megacast, and we are starting off the second hour with an individual I have been excited to talk with since this past Friday and the change with the state Supreme Court and the decision on the governor's executive power and the impact this is having on small businesses. So much confusion. Please welcome to the Oakland County Megacast, Brian Calley. He's the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I would imagine your phone has been ringing off the hook for a few days now.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time just getting to the bottom of what's happening, and we know the executive orders were made unenforceable, but there's still a ton of considerations that businesses have to make before they make changes, and so it has been a busy time. I really appreciate the invitation to come on the show.
So where do things stand right now? We're hearing the Supreme Court made its decision. The governor is saying it doesn't take effect for 21 days. Other people are saying, no, burn your mask now. What are you telling the small businesses? What should they be doing?
Yeah, there's a difference between what is absolutely required by law and at the moment and what is advisable to do. The executive orders themselves have been made unenforceable. So they still exist. They're still out there, but they don't. There's no enforcement capacity behind them. The governor's original statement, I think they've kind of backtracked from the confidence that they remained in effect for 21 days, and the Attorney General seemed to agree that really they become unenforceable immediately by announcing that they would not be enforcing out of the Attorney General's office either. However, one thing that businesses need to keep in mind is that under existing MIOSHA laws, there still is a general duty obligation to provide a safe work environment, a work environment free from hazards that are likely to cause serious injury or death. And under that obligation, it means that you can't just disregard that there's a pandemic. So what we have recommended businesses do is to look to the federal OSHA guidance here in the interim. We know some additional orders are going to happen out of state government. Some already have. There will be more today and tomorrow probably. There's going to be new rule sets that come out of MIOSHA, the Worker Safety Division of state government. And even though some of those, there's going to be some arguments about that, there's going to be some challenges probably to some of those things, that a safe place to operate is with the federal OSHA rules in terms of keeping your workplace, your workers safe, and making sure that you comply with that general duty obligation. And plus, it's just good business to make sure that your employees and your customers stay safe when they're doing business with you. And so that's why it's important that even without the executive orders, to still make sure that you're following the generally accepted protocols and the guidance to control for the epidemic and the pandemic that exists here in our state, especially within the boundaries of your business that you own.
I think the confusion comes in over the weekend. We saw a flurry of orders coming out of health departments. Here in Oakland County, it was one of the first counties to initiate the mask mandate, but then it was followed up with the state, so now the county goes away. But then you have federal rules and regulations as well, and I think that's where so much of the confusion comes in. Should they be following their local orders from a health department or the state or a federal?
Well, you have to pay attention to all three levels. And while some of the authorities are in dispute, I think it would be unadvisable to ignore any of them. We know that at the federal level that they have guidelines. They've been promulgated into rules, but they have guidelines that are generally accepted across the board. I've not seen anybody really say those guidelines are out of line, at least when it comes to the CDC protocols and the OSHA guidelines for what happens in a workplace. So from that standpoint, I think following those is a pretty safe place to operate. I think the health departments that moved quickly to initiate their own ordinances or emergency orders, were probably a bit premature on doing that because it was pretty clear from the governor's first press release that the State Department was about to do something. So the idea of giving it a little bit of time for the department and the legislature and the governor to work through what the framework is going to be. The idea of kind of a patchwork of different responses in different jurisdictions, I think, will make it harder. You'll probably get less compliance and harder to comply with the rules if it's so inconsistent between jurisdictions. So the idea of the initial kind of flurry of emergency orders that came out of Oakland County and Ingham County, and I think Washtenaw and Wayne actually did something too. Letting it settle a little bit here at the state level might be advisable, so that you're not putting things in place that you got to turn around and repeal a few days later.
Brian Calley with us. He's the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan, joining us this morning on the Oakland County Megacast. Brian, recently on a federal level, President Trump has said that he's encouraging members of Congress to suspend further negotiations on a second supplemental aid package related to COVID-19 until after the election. What are your thoughts on that second supplemental in terms of how much is needed for small businesses in the state of Michigan, and what waiting until after the results of the election, waiting another month, could potentially have in terms of an impact on our state's business community?
Well, it has been very discouraging over the last few months. It seems to be that Republicans and Democrats in the House, Republicans, Democrats in the Senate, and the President in the Treasury all agree that a scaled back version of the Paycheck Protection Program to help the businesses most impacted by the pandemic receive another round of support. And unfortunately, that's been kind of mixed in with a whole bunch of other things that there isn't agreement on. And it's caused things to really significantly slow up. I know that the president followed up with some comments this morning, yesterday, breaking off talks, but saying, hey, here are a list of things that I think we can all agree on. Let's just get those done now. One of those things was Paycheck Protection Program. I'm hopeful that there would be a willingness to consider that. I mean, it really, if everybody I talk to on both sides of the aisle seems to agree on that point. It wouldn't be as big as the first one. We know that some businesses have recovered really nicely, but some that have had to remain closed for a very long period of time or have limited capacities are more severely impacted. And helping those seems to be something everybody agrees on, but it's frustrating because it keeps on getting mixed in with a bunch of other things that there isn't agreement on. And it really puts a lot more of the small businesses at risk of survival, frankly, for no good reason. It's, the idea that everything gets so knotted up in Washington is frustrating for regular people, that are just trying to get by and make things happen and survive the pandemic.
Yeah, because while our elected leaders are trying to iron out the differences, they're still having to pay that light bill, pay that mortgage, or their rent. What are you telling some of the small businesses here in the state of Michigan?
Well, we continue advocacy, and we think that it's one thing for our association to advocate, but to really to harness the real power behind small business, it requires small business owners to also pile on and just create more pressure. So having them engaged and setting expectations and saying, okay, across this political spectrum, everybody says they support small business. It's one thing that's been kind of incredible. I've never heard anybody say they don't support small business. Now is the time to prove it. Now is the time to say, okay, then we got this thing that everybody seems to agree on. We're just going to let that happen. We're not going to try to use it we're not going to try and leverage small businesses in order to deal with unrelated things. Just help them because they're so important to our communities, and their survival makes a big difference. It's great to see manufacturing has come on strong, and a lot of them are back up at full capacity or even more than what they were before. That's fantastic. But when it comes to a lot of smaller businesses like restaurants and hospitality business and and those that are in the in entertainment and in businesses that happen around gatherings, even a lot of retail that depends on office worker traffic, which is not back robustly now. All those types of businesses, they're frankly still at a point of just hanging on by a thread. They really can't afford to wait any longer.
Brian Calley, he's the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan. And with that, with some of these small businesses, as you mentioned, while some have been able to come back and pivot and make changes, and in some ways become stronger than what they were before the crisis, there are, I would imagine, hundreds, if not thousands of other ones that are still taking it day by day, week by week. How do you keep them hopeful that this is going to come to an end, and that is it worth it for them to try to stay open?
Unfortunately, every day that passes, more and more businesses do decide that it's not a matter of whether it's worth it or not. They just can't do it anymore. They've run out of resources at their end of their ability to make it go. And so bringing them into the advocacy effort and demanding that action happen is one avenue that is available. But it's also in a lot of cases, entrepreneurs are figuring out what they have to do to survive, and in some cases that means pivoting into other types of business lines. In other cases, it means just figuring out how to fit within the context of a world that has dramatically changed. But there are some that just the nature of the pandemic that we face today makes it so their old business model just flat out doesn't work anymore. If you have a restaurant downtown Detroit, for example, where there are tens of thousands of office workers that are not going into the office every day, the fact that they're allowed to open, well, that's great, but their customers aren't back at work, and so a business like that faces an extraordinary amount of challenge because the world around them changed so much that I really do hope policymakers can zero in on those most affected and realize that when we lose a whole generation of entrepreneurs, that we'll be feeling the ramifications of that for many years to come.
And on top of that, I will say, I drive down the street right now and you see help wanted signs at just about every single business, whether it's a retail, a restaurant, a landscaping company. So there is work out there. However, it is often the lowest paying jobs. Those are the jobs that these businesses need to fill, but yet employees still aren't comfortable with coming back to working in the general population. Is there going to be a solution for that anytime soon?
Well, there is a lot of help wanted signs out there, and we are hearing from a lot of different lines of business, and frankly across a lot of different skill sets, so not just lower paying jobs, but having a hard time finding people. And at the same time, we've got close to I think maybe 850,000 people on unemployment right now. So I think it is important to start really changing the dialogue. Before was the only way to stay safe is to stay home, but workplaces, I think it's fair for somebody applying for a job to interview the person that's hiring them about what are your workplace safety procedures and protocols. Are you following the rules that are required to keep workers safe? And so I think that will become kind of almost like a marketing tool, if you will, for employers to use to attract employees to say, hey, we're going to keep you safe. We've got the type of work environment that has all the protocols to make sure that you can work in an environment that is not going to cause you any risk or harm. And so I think that part hasn't necessarily matured yet, where people are really using that as a leading indicator. Hey, we've got this job available. We need people in here to work. And by the way, we take very seriously our responsibility to keep you healthy and safe while you're working for us. But I think that's employers that are being proactive about that are finding that it's making a difference.
I know there has been legislation making its way through Lansing about the liability for some of these businesses when it comes to COVID-19. Where do things stand in that arena, and what are you telling your members? Is this something that you want to see passed?
We definitely want to see the liability landscape better defined. This is a point of both insecurity and also just uncertainty. Nothing will throw a wet blanket on economic activity like uncertainty will. And so to the extent that legislation can be put in place that says, hey, businesses, if you follow the rules and protocols, then you have certain presumptions, certain protections from frivolous lawsuits, that would be, I think that would be a really positive thing. So we're hopeful as we see that legislation make its way. It went from the House to the Senate. We know that the governor is skeptical about it. She told me directly as much. But we think that this is an important factor. It's one factor, just one factor, but an important factor in creating an environment where just the normal risk-taking activities of entrepreneurs is more likely to come back in a way that builds opportunity and jobs and just all the good things that small businesses bring to local communities.
Brian Calley with us. He's the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan with us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Brian, just a few more minutes with you today before we have to let you go. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed that would be important for our audience to know, or anything else that you want our audience to know about what the Small Business Association of Michigan is doing at this moment in time?
Well, we have put the entire team, all 26 of us on staff, are focused on the pandemic response and ensuring that we have the most up-to-date information available about what is required and what is recommended. We don't beat around the bush with this stuff. If it's uncertain, we'll say it's uncertain, but it doesn't stop us from giving interim advice in what to do. So I would invite people to check out sbam.org, sbam.org. We're an open platform. It's not just for members. We've taken on it as a mission to help all small businesses during this time, whether they're members or not. And we'd just love to engage with and get ideas and get feedback because from as many small businesses as possible, we've got almost 30,000 members, but it's an important feedback loop where how things are going, how the rules are impacting, and what needs to change between us and all levels of government is continuous, and we really, the more that we have on the same as part of that process, the better off we do long term. So it's just an open invitation. Please engage with us. You need help with something, please reach out.
Another question for you, because speaking with some of the business owners here in the Greater West Bloomfield area with the confusion about these orders, so now that the health department is going to be issuing these orders, who is in charge of enforcing them? So if I'm a small business, I'm a restaurant owner, someone walks through my door, who am I looking for? Am I looking for the local health inspector, the local police department, or, the state department? Who should I be looking out for that's in charge of enforcing these local and state health orders?
That's a good question. Technically, any law enforcement officer can enforce, although I think that local law enforcement officers are going to, they're going to hesitate until things are more clear on what the rules are and where the authorities lie. But clearly, a business owner can still set the rules for their business. So just because there's some question about the efficacy of mask requirements doesn't mean that a business still can't require it on their location. If somebody does not comply with that, then they're on your property without your permission, and that's called trespassing. So local law enforcement will respond to that. So the idea of still setting rules and standards and guidelines at your place of business, you still get to do that. And all law enforcement, I'm confident, will help with that. But when it comes to the individual who's not complying with a health order, the local health department might be an option. Local law enforcement is clearly, I'll use the term deputized somewhat loosely, but in that emergency order. But then I expect on bigger violations, you see the Attorney General's office get involved sometimes. But what I expect over the next couple of days to happen is MIOSHA will come out with workplace safety rules. So they've never really promulgated rules around the general duty provisions to provide a safe work environment that employers have. They haven't promulgated rules, and they've been relying just on the executive orders for that. I expect the next few days they will promulgate rules now, and those will very likely be enforceable rules by the MIOSHA staff, the inspectors. So that's yet to come. I'm speculating a little bit, but I'm usually right about my speculation.
Well, you are a person with connections. I will say, I guess if you're a business owner, just do more of what's required and you'll be covered and you'll be safe. Before we let you go, you come from politics, you have experience in politics. Now with the Supreme Court ruling here, doing away with the executive orders, do you think our politicians are going to be able to come together now and make some of these decisions that are going to be required and do it in a fashion that is respectful and timely and to which could satisfy the general public?
That's the question of the day. I've been involved in politics for now about 14 years. I've never seen the relationship between, particularly the Senate Majority Leader and the governor, as bad as it is now. And keep in mind, I was a freshman legislator during the Jennifer Granholm, Mike Bishop years, and they seem like best friends to me compared to what I see happening now. So that's so I think that is the main question of the day. What my experience, though, is that in the legislative and then executive branch process, that things don't happen until they have to happen, and so now with the executive orders taken out, the idea that of working together, trying to find some common ground on pandemic management issues, it's more likely to happen now because it's the environment requires something to be done. How timely that'll be, open question. But I'm hopeful. I mean, if there's one thing that I think we could use is tone down the heat a little bit in the rhetoric, and sometimes it helps to take the principals out and have some of the staff work up a few concepts, let the temperature settle down a few degrees, and then get back to work after that. But they got to come back to the table.
Oh, we all need that. I always say when you lose focus, go out and start talking to the regular people who are on the front lines directly impacted, and it will humble you and shape your focus again. Thank you so much, Brian Calley, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan. Always great to have you on our show, sharing your insight and your wisdom. We appreciate your time.
Pleasure to be with you anytime. Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. Still a lot to get here. And the last half hour, this is the Oakland County Megacast on the CivicCenterTV.com.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
So much to get to here on the Oakland County Megacast. Day by day, week by week, things are changing, so we try to help our viewers and our listeners clear up some of the confusion that is out there. And it has been a very confusing time with the Supreme Court's ruling last Friday. So hopefully Brian Calley was able to answer a few questions for some people, but I will tell you, they seem to be as lost as the rest of us, Tyler.
Yeah, really tough couple of days trying to adjust to these changes as we've been operating over the last 6 months, 7 months one way, and now we're going to have a completely different way of operating. It's going to be an adjustment on the local level. It's definitely an adjustment on the state level and in the individual level as well, and in a very short period of time also.
Yep, but I know speaking with quite a few business owners over the weekend, they were like, hey, no, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do that. And I think the capacity limits were one of the bigger things that they were concerned about. But as he stated, just continue on as we were. It's better to be safe than sorry. But we're going to switch direction just a little bit here. And let's talk about something a little bit more uplifting. We're going to bring in Daniel Stencil. He's the executive officer of the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission. Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
You have to have one of the coolest jobs, but I see you're in an office. Do you get out into the parks very often?
Yes, as often as I can, and I actually live, my backyard is adjacent to Independence Oaks, one of our premier parks.
Well, that's nice. We all need to be outdoors enjoying the weather that we've had, which has been so beautiful. Give us an update on the parks. I would imagine usership, if that's a word, how we would say it, is really increased during all of this.
It's we've seen a significant uptick, especially in the months of March, April, and May. Many of our parks saw visitation that resembled the middle of July. Unfortunately, we had to make some decisions very early on with the COVID situation where we knew we were going to have trouble maintaining social distance as well as being able to get enough staff to operate our facilities. So unfortunately, very early on in the spring, we closed our 2 water parks. And lifeguards are a commodity that is in very sharp decline in high demand. So anything that you and your viewers could help us with recruiting and making people aware that the county needs lifeguards and part-time staff to operate its facilities. We have about 75 full-time staff, but we totally rely upon 700 to 800 part-time seasonals to actually operate our golf courses, our dog parks, our food and beverage operations, etc.
Well, and I know that it's been hard for a lot of restaurants and retail establishments to get employees. But I would think the parks, that's like one of the best part-time jobs. You get to be outside. Plus, you have so many college kids right now that aren't returning to their college campuses because they're allowed to take classes remotely. But that's not helping you in your employment crisis then, huh?
No, not really. Actually, college students with, some of the campuses opening up and and then students moving in and then getting quarantined and so on. So that was significant with the reduction of the number of staff people that we were able to attract for hiring.
One of my absolute favorite things to do on the weekend is to go to the Oakland County Farmers Market. I've seen it change so much through the years, but I know that this year things have had to be scaled back a bit than even over the last year or 2 years prior. How are things going over at the farmers market? It seems like they're still pretty busy over there.
Oh, extremely. We're exceptionally proud of our staff and the general public and our vendors for thinking on their feet as to, we never did close the farmers market, even in the height of the COVID pandemic. We kept it open. We set up systems for minimizing social distancing issues, and we have seen tremendous attendance all year. And that in 2012, we assumed the management of the farmers market, and over time we've invested time and monies to increase its reception to the public. Back prior to our management, there wasn't a place where you could sit down. There wasn't a place where you could get a cup of coffee or something to eat. We even have entertainment, not this year, but we've had entertainment in the past, and programs that are held by the health department or Michigan State Extension for public education, as well as we've even had a collaboration with the sheriff's office to shred documents, and the last one is this Friday from 9 until 11. So there's a lot of activity going on at the farmers market, and it's a great place to meet friends and family.
It's absolutely one of my favorite things to do on the weekends, although my husband hates it when I'm like, baby, get up. After he worked the night shift on a Friday, and I want him to get up and go to the farmers market with me. But I used to jump between Oakland counties and Royal Oak, and then with Royal Oak having so much construction this year, and it seems like their vendors are down, I've even stopped going there and just focused on Oakland County. What's it been like for your vendors, and what's the competition amongst farmers markets to be able to get the vendors? But I did notice, especially more so in the beginning, it looked like their supplies were pretty low in the beginning of the season.
And that may be true. And there was some confusion over, what limitations the vendors would be put to. But the one thing with the vendors have been very resilient and very cooperative to work with us. In terms of product and so on, it seems like we have had good product throughout the year. Just one history lesson: the Royal Oak market actually was a county facility up until I think the 80s or early 90s. So the county had 2 farmers markets at that time.
See, we learn something new every day on the Oakland County Megacast, so we appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about the parks. Sometimes I think people get confused over which ones are your local parks versus which ones are county, but I would imagine because things are a little bit scaled back this year, is that also giving you a little bit of free time to kind of catch your breath and make improvements to the parks?
Well, you bring up a great topic. We are blessed in Oakland County to have 90,000 acres of publicly held land and have the Michigan Department of Parks and Recreation, as well as here in Clinton Metro Parks, the county parks, and then 62 units of government with their different types of park opportunities. So we try to operate in I call it a systems approach. We're not so concerned about people necessarily knowing that Oakland County Parks provides this, that, and whatever. It's more important for our residents to have all of these wonderful facilities, services, and programs available to them, provided by a multitude of providers.
We're getting a little bit of a drag there, so we're going to see if we can get Daniel back here. Again, we're speaking with Daniel Stencil. He is the executive officer for the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission. And just like all of you, we're all so used to Zoom by now. And one of the things with Zoom is sometimes you do lose that signal, or sometimes there is a little bit of a drag. So we're going to try to reconnect with him again here. But if you've never been to the Oakland County Farmers Market, I do invite everyone to get out there and enjoy it. They've made so many great changes over the past few years to the farmers market. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, see if we can get Daniel back on the phone, maybe. This is the Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
With us on the Oakland County Megacast, I'm Ronnie Dahl in the studios here with Tyler Keefe. You can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, check us out on Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. You can also catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 FM The Biff. And we're always excited Monday through Friday. We are here in the studios 10 a.m. to noon bringing you interviews with our newsmakers and interesting people throughout West Bloomfield, Oakland County, and the state of Michigan. We were speaking earlier with Daniel Stencil. He is the executive officer for the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Commission. We lost his signal, as all of us have been experiencing as we have gone ahead and gone to this new virtual technology world. We all have these problems. I couldn't imagine what it's like to be a teacher every single day trying to connect with so many of these kids. So while we try to reconnect with him, we're going to go ahead and just maybe go over to recap today's headlines here on the Oakland County Megacast. So each and every morning before we head into the studios, we do go ahead and update the headlines for you. Some of the new things happening right now: the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued a new rule Tuesday to replace Governor Gretchen Whitmer's former order on school COVID-19 case notification. K-12 schools are going to be required to provide public notice if they have a probable or confirmed case of COVID-19 among students, faculty, or staff. The order is effective Monday and lasts through October 30th. According to the department order, the notice to the school community must go out within 24 hours. So that's different now. It has to go out within 24 hours after the local health department informs the school of the case. Local health department must also notify close contacts of the associated case. So that is one of the changes that we are seeing, also making headlines today. Another order that was issued yesterday, the involves our nursing homes. The emergency order does maintain existing COVID-19 precautions in nursing homes and other long-term care facilities in the wake of a recent Michigan Supreme Court decision invalidating many of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's coronavirus executive orders. One of the orders issued by Director Robert Gordon continues visitation restrictions for residential care facilities like nursing homes, adult foster care, and assisted living facilities. The residential care order also stipulates notice requirements for employees, residents, legal guardians, health proxies for residents when an employee or resident tests positive, and is also going to require the facility to post public notices and notify the local health department when a case occurs. Another change coming out of yesterday's mandate, though, was residential care facilities are going to have to keep records of personal protection equipment supplies and report that information to the state. For so many of us that have been following along on what's been happening in the nursing homes throughout this pandemic, there has been a lot of concern from so many of the workers that they are not getting enough PPE for them to be able to safely do their job. So now they're going to have to report that information to the state of Michigan. There's a new poll that came out yesterday as well. More than a third of Michigan voters will not get vaccinated against COVID-19, even if the measure is federally approved and recommended by the doctor. That's according to a Detroit News WDIV TV poll. When asked if they would take a vaccine approved by the Food and Drug Administration, 39% said they would not. 44% indicated that they would, and the remainder were unsure. Substantial numbers who said they would not get vaccinated signals an uphill climb for the state to convince residents that approved vaccine is both reliable and important for public and personal health. Here's one we haven't talked about just yet. The Michigan High School Athletic Association announced an increase in its spectator limits from 2 fans per participant to up to 1,000 fans per venue. That actually started immediately yesterday. Now, the increase was set to take effect Friday, October 9th, but it is now applies to competitions that began Tuesday afternoon. Under the MHSAA guidelines, crowd sizes at high school sports competitions will be determined by the venue size. Indoor venues in regions 1 through 5, 7, and 8 are going to be allowed to hold 20% of their seating capacity, up to 500 spectators. Indoor venues in Region 6, they'll be able to have at least 25% capacity. Outdoor athletic venues across the state will be allowed to hold 30% of their seating capacity, up to 1,000 spectators. If local health department orders are stricter than the MHSAA limits, member schools and venues are expected to follow the local orders. That's kind of a big thing that's been coming out. A lot of the schools are excited to try to get back their marching bands as well as some of their cheerleaders at some of these events. Obviously, it impacts more than just high school football, other sports as well, but high school football really being such a focus right now in the fall time because under the bright lights Friday night, that's where it is. So much is connected to a school's football program. CivicCenterTV.com each and every day. We also try to make it easy for you to be able to get the latest information. We have connections there to CDC resources, as well as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and each and every one of our local communities here throughout the greater West Bloomfield area. You'll find that and so much more on CivicCenterTV.com. We are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast as we continue to try to navigate our technical issues here in the studio. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19.
Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. Our apologies to Daniel Stenzel, as well as we were going to have on Bill Mullen with the Oakland County Executive's Office to kind of give us an update on the mask mandate. However, it looks like our internet went down. Not only did our internet go down, but that also means our phone is down, Tyler.
Yeah, so it's all from the same provider. And, I think this is one of those examples where we have been so lucky for 7 months of doing this show in the format that we do it, that having somebody on the show over Zoom, that having people on the show over the phone, that everything that we do to operate this program is so virtual and so over the internet, and like many other people in other facets of life, whether it be education, whether it be their work, whether it be municipal meetings, whatever the case might be, there's been these technical difficulties, and there's been outages where we've even talked about it to some extent with some educators, where there's been outages where there is no internet and you can't connect anymore, or you have a power outage and all of a sudden now you can't do your school work, you can't do your regular day's work. It's affected other people. We've been so lucky here for 7 months that we haven't had that issue, and of course we're running into it today, but we'll recover like everybody else. We gotta move on, and our day has to continue to go forward. So we're still on the radio right now. We're still on TV and just our web outlets that are out, but we will have this full show for you in high definition and replay. Hopefully later today, should we be able to get our internet back relatively soon.
So this is one of the things I don't want to say laugh about with my husband, but he insists that we still have a landline phone. The thing with the landline phone today, it's connected to our Comcast. So when your internet goes out, your phone goes out.
Yeah.
Which is what we are having here, which kind of defeats the purpose of also having a landline. So I'm like, can we get rid of the landline? And he's like, no, we don't use the landline. It's just basically this, all we do is we get spam calls on our landline.
Yeah, I mean, I had previously changed some emergency contact information with something to one of my parents' home phone numbers, and then I talked to them about it and said, yeah, I have this as my number, and then the backup to call for if they can't get through to me would be your home phone number as an emergency contact, and then they said, well, actually we just disconnected our landline because all we get is spam phone calls to it, and when everything else goes out, so does it. So, it's technology issues like this. They're regular. They happen to everybody, and we'll roll forward with it just as they do, Ronnie.
You know what I always say in this business? At least it's not brain surgery.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd hate to mess up brain surgery.
In all honesty, this is not the first time that any live broadcast has had technical issues. It's not going to be the last time. And I know a lot of people get stressed out and upset about it. But at the end of the day, we'll put it in perspective of life. And so our job here is just try to bring you the latest information. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get Bill Mullen on with us. We will try to get him on once again. And he was gracious enough today as well to realign his schedule to try to come on with us. So we'll try to get with him a little bit later this week just to clarify the mask mandate in Oakland County. They were the first county to issue the mask mandate, Tyler, I believe, on Saturday.
Yep.
But it has now been rescinded because of the fact the state of Michigan has now issued one as well. So they were kind of that gap measure in between. But still there is a lot of questions. There are still a lot of questions for business owners. What does that mean? And we were hoping to get clarification from him, and we'll get him on as well. And again, our apologies to Daniel Stencil, the executive officer with the Oakland County Parks and Recreation Department. We were in the middle of his interview when it went down, and he had so many great things to say and so many good things that they're doing over at the Parks Division. We are so lucky to have the Oakland County Parks as well as the West Bloomfield Parks here in our backyard. It looks like, is the internet kind of coming back up, do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, it looks like it might be up, back up for us here just for a little bit. We're not sure if it's going to stay up or if it's a temporary return. So we're not going to try to get anybody on that we have already lost at the end of the show today and try to have them on and have another issue come up. So we're going to stick with what we have for now, and maybe go through some stuff from previous shows while we have a couple more minutes before we say goodbye on this lovely Wednesday of ours.
It's hump day, Tyler.
It is, and boy, are we needing to get over the hump now.
Oh, it's okay.
That's fine. Things happen,
It's okay. Hey, so Friday night, you guys going to be doing the game again?
Yes, Friday night we will be covering West Bloomfield football. It's the next 3 weeks are home games. It's 3 consecutive home games to finish off the season, and man, oh man, am I happy about that, as is Dave Scott. After last week's game, we were out in the elements, so to speak, at Clarkston High School, and then the game, of course, started a half hour later, so we were out there a half hour later than normal, and the game went into overtime, so it was quite the experience. A great game nonetheless, but good to be back at home for 3 more weeks to round out the regular season, and hopefully more home games as the Lakers and every other team in the MHSAA will qualify for the playoffs. They're taking on the Oxford Wildcats, 2-1. They're struggling a little bit, but they are maintaining their record. They're coming in 2-1, just like the West Bloomfield Lakers are. A nice OAA Red Division match with the Lakers, a contender and one of the favorites in the OAA Red and in the entire state of Michigan. And Oxford, one of those teams that's on the cusp of being in contention. If they can pull out a win against the Lakers on Friday night, they become one of those surprise teams in the state that was expected to have more of a down year after the retirement of the legendary Bud Rowley, their longtime head coach. But West Bloomfield is definitely going to want to answer back this week. They struggled at the end of the game last week against Clarkston. It was very tough out in the elements against a really talented team that definitely had their number and was able to sustain drives against them late in the game and get their guys tired. So I think they're going to come out this week more focused on conditioning, more focused on stick-to-itiveness and studying this team as well as possible so that they can come out against Oxford and have a really nice showing at home. We'll have that entire game for you live right here on 89.3 Lakes FM, a radio broadcast as we always have in every Laker football game. And we'll have our second TV broadcast of the regular season as well. We'll have our cameras, we'll have our broadcast gear out at West Bloomfield High School at the Swamp. And after recent declarations by the MHSAA, we'll probably have a few more spectators there this week than we've had in the past, Ronnie.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you about that. What's it been like to be at the games? Because it is so different this year. And any word from West Bloomfield as to how many people they're going to actually allow into the stadium this Friday night?
No indication just yet. I will check in with Eric Pierce. Maybe able to have Eric Pierce on to talk about with those changes with the MHSAA rules, what West Bloomfield High School's decisions are going to be regarding that. But it will be interesting to see what happens on Friday night in terms of who does attend the game. The MHSAA does have new regulations, but like everything else that the MHSAA has told us, we've had John Johnson on, the Director of Broadcast Operations, who has multiple times said, while the MHSAA has these rules and these regulations and these suggestions, ultimately it is going to be up to the local school districts and the individual schools to decide how they enforce these rules and whether or not they follow those or put their own even stricter rules in place week to week, game to game, and throughout this entire special COVID-19 inflicted football season.
Yeah, in all of our conversations, I do believe we've never really touched on what this has been like for the marching bands. So while we're talking about athletics so much, you have to remember there are so many students that do get music scholarships, as well as some of the cheerleaders get scholarships as well. So I'm not sure if they're going to actually allow them back on the field, but I know that's been one of the issues with a lot of the schools, that they want to be able to get at least some form or some portion of some of these outside student athletes that contribute so much to the Friday night atmosphere, to get them back on the gridiron per se as well.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of that with the cheerleading team. They have been at all of these games so far for the West Bloomfield Lakers, including the Oak Park game in week 1, where there were no fans in attendance from either school, and both schools had their cheer teams there, still cheering on the teams, facing their home and away stands like it's a regular game. And credit to the West Bloomfield cheer team. They were excellent. They were cheering to the away stands at Oak Park that week, which, they acted like Dave and I were 150 people from the West Bloomfield faithful in there, and
so
we
really,
weren't even paying attention to them.
there was no one in the stands, and they were cheering.
They were cheering to us just as boisterously as they would if there were 150 of us, and we weren't even paying attention because we were calling the football game. So just shows how dedicated these student athletes are, whether they're on the football field or they are on the cheer team. And I think with the MHSAA regulations, we'll probably see more of the bands be the first groups of people to be allowed back in, as they're also part of that atmosphere that the kids on the field are used to, that the fans that are experiencing the game are used to, and they're probably clamoring to get back out there to themselves, as these bands work extremely hard in the fall season to get their shows ready for competitions on top of these games, where they're staying up late at night every Friday night, just like the rest of us, for football games to help celebrate the occasion with, of course, the entire community.
So for people such as myself, I'm not so much there for the football game. I do like the entertainment, so I like the cheerleaders, but also some of these marching bands are incredible. This is not, I mean, I know that we know, like Ohio State Marching Band, they have one of the best college marching bands out there, but high school has really stepped up its performance level over the past few years, and they really know how to put on a show. And we should try to get the marching band. I guess they're a conductor.
Yeah,
right?
maybe I'll get the director of the drum major.
Yeah, we haven't had them on the show at all to speak about that aspect, about what they're going through and how they are still trying to do their training as well.
Yeah, we may be able to get them on very soon, and we'll certainly reach out to them from West Bloomfield High School, because they have a great band there and they do some excellent work, Ronnie.
Well, this has been an interesting edition of the Oakland County Megacast. A few technical snafus, but we'll get it all worked out and be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m.